Welcome to CivilNet. My guest today is Dr. Viken Yacoubian from Los Angeles. Viken, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
You are here taking part in the World Congress of the Hamazkayin Cultural and Educational Association. Yeah. You're also a PhD in psychology. You were a principal at the
Rose and Alex
Bilibos High School in Los Angeles, and you are now an adjunct professor at Woodbury University. Hamazkayin, for those of us who grew up in the diaspora, we're aware and familiar of the work that Hamazkayin has done in the diaspora. And after independence, the organization decided to come to Armenia. Some people would question why a diaspora and cultural organization would come to Armenia. Has it fulfilled the mandate that it set out for itself at the time?
No, I don't think that it has fulfilled the mandate. There is still a lot of work that is to be done and is being done in the diaspora. And as you noted, Hamazkayin was primarily a diasporan organization formed in 1928 to not only preserve the cultural heritage and the cultural richness of the Armenian people, to also develop the necessary educational and cultural infrastructure so that the communities can grow in this uprooted new experience. That has changed and it has evolved over many, many years, but the mandate, of course, has not been fulfilled. It does sound like an oxymoron to be here in Armenia as a cultural organization, and there is a degree of search for a newer identity that includes the independent Armenian phenomenon, and where Hamazkayin fits in that new tapestry and in that new picture. And that is something that is being continuously explored. One thing that is fundamental and important is the fact that now there is a global reality of Armenianness that also includes Armenia. And undoubtedly, Hamazkayin has a role to play, at least in that bridging and in that connection between diaspora and Armenia. And culture plays a role in that.
Sure. I'm glad this is the way this conversation is going. That's the next question. Diaspora-Armenia relationship, bridges of understanding, knowledge circulation, all of these issues, disconnect between Armenia and diaspora, not understanding one another, not even speaking the same language at times. Can organizations like Hamazkayin play a fundamental role in helping to build those kinds of bridges that are really so necessary today?
There is no question in my mind that Hamazkayin and similar organizations can play a critical role in that context. I mean, Hamazkayin has been coming here with a program that's called the Forum, which has been a very successful program where Armenians from diaspora come to Armenia and spend a significant amount of time during the summer, basically, aside from the program itself, basically connecting to their roots. There is an underlying identity issue which has to do with exploring and finding, and Hamazkayin has a role to play in facilitating that process. I mean, there is, as you noted, there is a disconnect, and the only way that disconnect could be lifted over time is through contact, is through programs where diaspora and Armenia come together in a very meaningful and significant way. Also, in promoting conversation that really addresses the differences and the disconnect, because these differences have historical roots. They have occurred not of our own choice, but because of the genocide and historical circumstances, now we have an Armenian nation that has many different identities, and there are many different layers of those identities, and we have to find a place where at some point these identities can meld into a new reality. And that takes time, and that takes a lot of effort, deliberate effort, as well as contact, constant contact. Hamazkayin will be one of the catalysts or forces that will catalyze that process of contact. In diaspora, for instance, Maria, there is an issue of having multiple identities, multiple cultural identities, part of which is Armenian, but there's another part for us that comes from our non-Armenian experience that has been internalized into who we are. And we need to have an opportunity to explore both aspects. Not be afraid.
Right.
Not be afraid. Own it, because it is part of our identity.
Sure.
And to explore that part of our identity that's Armenian. To be able to find that, we have to be in Armenia.
Yeah. You know, our generation growing up in North America, we were so insularized in our communities, and we always had to speak Armenian, and identifying oneself with an American cultural phenomena was seen as something that was bad. And you know, now as we get older and as our nation is evolving, especially with the existence now of an independent Armenian Republic, we always talk, and that's how I began talking about the disconnect, but we don't often talk about the strength that represents for you growing up in North America, for somebody growing up in Europe or the Middle East or in South America.
The capital of that is amazing. It's phenomenal. It's unique. It is a capital that we don't use enough. And that is very important. And you're very correct in saying that it was insular. I think that the challenge in the diaspora has been to break out of that ghetto community kind of a setting, which I think we have successfully done. Now, coming back to Armenia is also to explore a new form of identity that is not based on this ghetto, closed, insular Armenian identity. So it's an emancipation. I mean, the return and the contact has to do with emancipating, with liberating that part of our identity.
It's absolutely amazing that you say that, because oftentimes when diasporan Armenians come and they will ask questions that make you realize that they still view Armenia sometimes within the confines of their communal existence in the diaspora. And you have to remind them that this is not a community, this is not a kahut or a hamayin.
It's a country.
It's a country.
Exactly.
So
that is so true. That's a very good point. That is so true. It's a country, it's an independent country, and it's your country.
That's right. So own it, and nobody has to give us an invitation.
Exactly.
It's a birthright.
You have to claim it.
You claim it. Whether you claim it or not, that's your decision, but it is here to be claimed and waiting. Just a final question about language, identity. All of these are so intermeshed with one another. The question of Western Armenian language, Eastern Armenian language, what role does Armenia need to play? From a diasporan point of view, when today our schools in the diaspora are suffering because we don't have enough Armenian language teachers who specialize in Armenian history, do you see Armenia playing the role of parent in this case to help sustain Armenian culture, language in the diaspora?
No question. I would say partner. But a partnership that is really a significant one. It's a frequent one, and there is a tremendous role to play as far as Armenia is concerned in bringing new blood and new vitality to the Armenianness in the diaspora. in that sense, I think Hamazkayin has an important role as well, not only to come here, but also to take this experience and creating opportunities for the capital that we have here in Armenia to also be used in the diaspora for the benefit of the generations that are there and the generations that are going to be there.
Sure.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much for this
You're
very
welcome.
interesting conversation. I hope the next 3 days of your meetings will be fruitful and you will talk about these things, I'm sure, and continue with the Hamazkayin Forum, which you have, like you said, every year here in Yerevan. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'd like to remind our viewers that my guest today was Dr. Viken Yacoubian from Los Angeles, who is here to participate in the Hamazkayin Cultural and Educational Association's World Congress. Stay with CivilNet.